Hello, my name is Nate Hess, and I'm a park guide with the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. As you can see, I'm sitting here at my dining room table. I have a picture up here to my one side, as well as a mug rack over here on my other side, and I'm still working from home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, chances are, many of you watching from home will have shared a meal around a table very similar to this one, whether that's your kitchen table, whether that's your dining room table. And I'd like to ask you a question. What makes a meal special? Is it the food? Is it that it's perhaps a favorite meal of yours? Or is it the people that you share that meal with? Food has a unique ability to bring people together around a table, to form bonds, to form friendships, to strengthen the ties that you have with other people. And people really do not change either all that much. We form bonds as we eat together today, and that is also true for people in the past. Now, I work once more for the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, and the members of the Lewis and Clark expedition absolutely grew closer, made bonds by eating together, by sharing meals together, by sharing the food that they had hunted, by sharing the food that they had traded for. And the members of the Lewis and Clark ate a variety of different items, mostly meat when they could get it. However, they also, just like you and I today, like to eat bread as well. Now, whereas we might go get a loaf of sliced bread from the supermarket to have with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or maybe some dinner rolls to have with a special dinner, the members of the Lewis and Clark's expedition bread was a bit different. It was like this. What you see here, what I'm holding out in front of you, is a round sort of cracker, and this is called hardtack. That term was popularized during the second half of the 19th century, particularly during and after the American Civil War. At the time of the Lewis and Clark expedition, these sort of round crackers would have been called biscuit or just straight bread. And it was these biscuits that comprised most of the bread ration during the Lewis and Clark expedition. It's not very fancy. It's basically just wheat flour and water mixed together, formed into these round crackers, like the one that I just held up, and basically baked for several hours and sort of almost dried out rather than baked. And this is something that you can still make at home today. In fact, I've got a few items up here that helped me bake these, along with my wonderful fiancee Samantha. She helped me out with this a couple nights ago, and we made our own hardtack, and you can too. That's something that you can do at home. And the first thing that you need a big mixing bowl just like this, and in it you're going to mix 4 cups of wheat flour, whole wheat flour, along with about a half cup of water is what the recipe called for. My fiance and I found that we needed a bit more water to get an actual dough out of it, and that dough is going to look something kind of like that. That's a blob of some of the dough that we had left over from making our biscuit, making our hardtack. And after that, we had to make the actual hardtack into the cracker shapes that you see right here, like you see on the plate here in front of me. That's some of the dough before we actually cooked the hardtack. And in order to form that, we used a biscuit cutter, kind of like that. In reality, from what I read, the biscuits would have been a bit bigger than the ones that we made. We didn't quite have a biscuit maker large enough to make ones that were super historically accurate, but that's what we had, so that's what we worked with. And after we cut out the biscuits into these round shapes like you see here, I washed a large nail, just like you see there that I'm holding out in front of me, and I actually poked a series of holes in top of the hardtack as well. That's to help the dough dry out once you actually bake them. And then once you actually do bake them, you get some finished hardtack that looks kind of like That's what they look like after they've been baked. They're almost kind of like big saltine crackers. Once more, these aren't fancy. They're just wheat flour mixed with water. There's no salt in it, anything like that. After you form the dough into these shapes and put them on a floured cookie sheet, I baked these for about 4 hours. It does take quite a while. I baked them at 200 degrees, so it's not a very hot oven either. And this is what you end up with. This is the biscuits that you end up with. And during the Lewis and Clark expedition, these were very valuable because hardtack isn't going to become moldy. It's not going to become stale and inedible like fresh white bread did. They did get fresh white bread at a few different points on the expedition, generally when they were staying in one place for a while. But otherwise, this was their bread ration that they got, and they had with the meat that they ate, with some of the other things that they ate. As you can see, they're quite difficult to bite into. I couldn't even really get a good bite out of it there. And they do become very, very hard. As you can see, they're quite tough. In order to eat these, the men of the Lewis and Clark expedition could have done a couple different things. They could have dipped it into a hot beverage of some sort. Many of the men would have cooked these up by putting it in a pan with meat fat of some sort and cooking it up that way. The biscuits are going to soak up that fat, and that's going to make the biscuits much more edible and easy to eat as well. And that's a little bit about how the men of the Lewis and Clark expedition would have eaten that hardtack. It's quite tough to eat. And that being said, the important thing about those meals isn't necessarily what they were eating, but how those meals helped bring the men of the Lewis and Clark expedition together as a team. When you share a meal with someone, you get to know them a little better. That's certainly true today, and that was certainly true during the Lewis and Clark expedition. So if you like, you can make this hardtack on your own. If not, that's okay too. To be honest, they don't really taste all that well, taste all that good. But if you do, try to break them up a little bit before you eat them. Please don't break any teeth trying to eat this hardtack. As you saw, I kind of tried to take a bite into it and wasn't even really able to make much of a dent in them. So do be careful if you actually make any of this hardtack. And otherwise, enjoy your next meal with your family or friends. It's a great way to get to know someone. That's true today. That was also true during the Lewis and Clark expedition. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.